When dealing with corrupt politicians, who should decide their fate? Should it be up to the people, or should it be up to our legal system? That question strikes at the core of both American democracy and the rule of law. A balance needs to be struck between the democratic will, meaning the voice of the people, and legal accountability, meaning the courts. That balance seems to be out of whack, and the people have recently spoken on this topic. On one hand, democracy is the ultimate form of accountability. Democracy says that the people decide politicians' fate. If the people believe that somebody is corrupt or incompetent or unfit for office, they vote them out at the next election. This is the core of American democracy. Elections decide politicians' future, not unelected judges, not politically motivated investigations, not political leaders deciding someone needs to resign. If someone is undeserving of public life, the people vote them out at the next election. This is the core of American democracy. When courts and legal battles dictate politicians' futures and political trajectories, that undermines the democratic will of the people. However, on the other hand, everybody is beholden to the laws of the United States. And when anybody breaks the law, including politicians, they should be held accountable for their actions. Nobody's above the law. That is a core part of American jurisprudence. It is a core part of the American legal system that nobody's above the law. And if somebody breaks the law, they're held liable for their actions. If a leader engages in fraud or abuse of power or any other criminal action, the legal system must step in and prevent corruption from eroding our political system. Without that judicial intervention, you could imagine the rise of dictatorship. You could see a politician avoiding consequences because they're politically popular or they have friends in power or any other reason. You could see a path towards away from democracy. You could see a path towards dictatorship. Nobody's above the law. That is a core part of American law. Let's consider some examples of recent politicians facing consequences not from the people, but from either the legal system or other politicians calling on their resignation or public pressure, not the people deciding their futures. First, the obvious example is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a gangster and a crook and has really broken our judicial system with both his small petty crimes and his serious crimes. Both those combined, the small legal petty crimes and the major crimes, have really strained the American legal system. They strained our foundational principles that America was founded on. And it's prompted debates about the resilience of our legal and political system. The people have spoken, and Donald Trump was reelected despite all of his legal problems. We're going to outline all of his legal problems. But the people have spoken that they did not care about his legal problems. The first example is the one that he was found guilty on counts. The hush money case. In 2023, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg brought 34 felony counts against then former President Donald Trump for paying $130,000 to porn actress Stormy Daniels. Trump slept with Stormy Daniels, didn't want that information to come out during the 2016 election because it would be embarrassing to him, and so he falsified business records in order to prevent that information from coming out. In May 2024, in the middle of the general election, Donald Trump was found guilty on all 34 counts. His sentencing was postponed because he won the 2024 election, and so he's now the question is, can a sitting president serve time in prison, which in all likelihood he won't. This obviously raises complex legal questions. The people felt like this was a petty crime and a legally motivated witch hunt against Trump. And Trump called it a witch hunt and seemed to convince the people that this is not important. And the evidence for that is that, well, he was reelected. Uh, there's some polling that suggests that actually Trump's favorability increased due to Alvin Bragg's case. That Donald Trump, who's a billionaire, paying $130,000 is almost nothing to him, and that this was politically motivated, not legally, not a legal obligation for Alvin Bragg to bring. There are many who think that Alvin Bragg is responsible for the political boost that Trump got and that it undermined the other legal woes that Trump faced. The next legal challenge that Trump faced was the federal indictments related to the 2020 insurrection on the Capitol. In August 2023, Trump was indicted on 4 charges related to attempts to overturn the presidential election. That then just got kept getting postponed and postponed. He also had the classified documents case, which a judge threw out. That was 40 federal counts on mishandling classified documents. Then you had the Georgia state case, not a federal case, a state case. Trump and 18 co-defendants were charged in Georgia state law. This case is ongoing. Trump can't pardon himself because that is it's a state law, but it is still ongoing, and so we're not sure what the future is. But he intervened in the 2020 Georgia presidential elections, trying to overturn the will of the people there. Then you have the civil liability case, the civil case between Trump versus E. Jean Carroll, who Trump was found guilty and liable for $80 million for sexually abusing and defaming E. Jean Carroll. Then you have the Trump organization fraud case. In 2022, the Trump organization was convicted on 17 criminal charges, including tax fraud, falsifying business records, and that led to significant financial penalties. So that's a lot of legal challenges, and there are more, but all of that's to say Trump was still reelected. So the people saw this and they said the people ought to decide Trump's future, not the courts. And that balance between democratic will and legal accountability, Trump now claims is really out of whack and needs to stop what he calls lawfare, warfare via law. This is interesting, and it's really that Trump has broken our legal system. He spent a career fighting cases in court, and he's probably going to continue to do so. But it's really the fact that America voted for him nonetheless really questions where this balance is between legal accountability and the will of the people. Next, you have Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, who was charged in bribery and campaign finance laws in September of 2024. Despite those serious allegations, actually the federal government dropped their charges, but might still bring them back if Adams does not comply with Trump's immigration aspirations. Now, these were so small-minded, which really speaks to Eric Adams's small-mindedness, but it also speaks to whether the case should have been brought forward or whether it should have just been whether the people, given that there is a primary election in just a few months, ought to decide Adams's future. So the question is whether someone like Eric Adams, really given the smallness of his actions, should be one, he should not be reelected, but also should he face prison time or should he just be removed from office? Next example is Governor Andrew Cuomo. This is interesting because of recent events, but back in 2021, after a very lengthy governorship, Andrew Cuomo was forced to resign due to public pressure. The state attorney general's report showed that Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women. And you had calls from Everyone from essentially every big politician called for Cuomo's resignation. And that said, no legal challenges were ever brought, and the people really never got to decide on this. Now, Cuomo is running for mayor of New York City. He just announced that he's running against Eric Adams, and he says, let the people decide my political trajectory. Let the people decide my fate, not the courts, because the courts actually never did. And actually, it was not the people who decided for him to resign, but it was public pressure from people like Senator Chuck Schumer, not the grassroots people. It'll be interesting to see if Cuomo can launch this political comeback, or if the people truly say, no, you were a sexual abuser or sexual harasser, so we don't want you back in public life. I'd say the opposite of the Cuomo case would be the Bob Menendez case. So Bob Menendez, senator from New Jersey, was indicted in 2015 on corruption case. The trial ended in a hung jury in 2017, and then the charges were subsequently dropped. Then he was reelected in 2018. So the people saw the case. He fought his political case. He fought his political life through that corruption charge, and then was reelected. And then very soon after the charges were dropped in the hung jury, he actually committed more crimes. And in September 2023, federal prosecutors indicted Bob Menendez, alleging that he accepted gold bars and cash and other luxury gifts for political favors for aiding the Egyptian government. And there were a total of, 16 counts. He was found guilty on 16 counts. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Obviously, everybody called for his, the political fallout was swift. Everyone called for his resignation very soon afterwards, including top Democrats, top New Jersey officials. Everybody, the picture of Bob Menendez with gold bars in his house is just like the most brazen example of political corruption in a long time, and it's ironic, given that for this conversation, it's ironic in that he had previous legal troubles, and then the people decided actually we're okay with Bob Menendez in office, and then he commits this other crime. And I think just about everybody thinks that Bob Menendez, if he was able to run for re-election, if he ran for election, would absolutely be, demolished, right? His polling is abysmal for obvious reasons. He's among the most corrupt politicians. This is unchecked political greed. It's just an abomination. I want to be clear about something. Crooks should be in jail. Full stop. Crooks should be in jail, not in public office. I'm not excusing wrongdoing or illicit action or illegality or corruption. Crooks should be in jail, not in public office. Full stop. Ultimately, a balance needs to be struck between democratic will and legal accountability, and the courts should not be used as political weapons to sideline political opponents, and they should be used as a safeguard for our democracy. They should be used as a safeguard against corruption and abuse of power. The U.S. political system already has ways to safeguard corrupt politicians, like impeachment or resignations or calls for resignation that allow both voter-driven consequences and legal consequences. Politicians like Menendez really exploit their positions so flagrantly, and the legal system must take action. On the other hand, you have scenarios like Governor Andrew Cuomo, and I'm not excusing Cuomo's actions; they're abominable. But the people ought to decide his future. The challenge we face is ensuring both legal actions against politicians for genuine wrongdoing takes place, and that political motivations don't harm good politicians. In the end, the best system is one that allows the people to choose their leaders, while ensuring that those same leaders are held to high legal standards because nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law.